Huddle Up podcast. It is June the 26th, Wednesday, June the 26th, as I'm recording this. This is the Observations with Big Jim. Yes, don't adjust your podcast screens. Don't adjust your headphones, your earbuds, your AirPods. Where I guess technically we're on YouTube, so don't adjust your YouTube screen as well. Because, yes, indeed, this is the Observations with Big Jim. It has been almost 4 months since I've recorded one of these. And if you do subscribe to us on any podcast platform or YouTube, certainly do appreciate that. If you don't, head over Huddle Up Podcast on YouTube, Facebook.com/Huddle Up Podcast, Twitter at Huddle Up Podcast as well. We do have a TikTok at Huddle Up Podcast. And we have an Instagram as well. But hit up our link tree, subscribe on all podcast platforms, YouTube's, all of that. Get our merchandise over at TeePublic. We got the business out of the way. But yes, if you follow this feed, subscribe to this feed, with the exception of our YouTube channel and the Student of the Game podcast, Bing, as well as the Duval Dive, Bing, you will know that this feed has been pretty quiet for the past few months. I will get into that for myself, for the rest of the Huddle Up crew. This is a me problem, not a them problem. Mike and his buddy with the mount, that is a Florida Panthers problem. I'll talk about that in a second. But the content should start returning here. Especially as we go through July, going to have some Huddle Up podcast episodes, off-season program, and then we're a little over a month away from getting back into the football world. So we are on our way back. Don't call it a comeback, but this is why. The last time I dropped an Observations was almost 4 months ago, March 12th. And the last 4 months I've been extremely busy. If you want to hear a little more in depth about that, go to my Twitter at Big Jim Sports, hit the link tree, go to Discussions with a Nobody. I'm literally dropping an episode the same time I'm dropping this one with a long soliloquy about why I've basically kind of gone podcast dark with the exception of 3CT and Take 3 Wrestling for the past 4 months. But I've been extremely busy. We did WrestleMania, took a trip to Disney for the last couple of months. The Hershey Bears were going through their Calder Cup playoffs, and I'll talk about that, but culminated with a back-to-back championship win. And things have just been extremely busy, and I have prioritized some experiences and just trying to get settled from what has been a crazy spring. But let's dive in because there's sports to talk about. Not going to be a super long episode tonight, but once I kind of get back into the flow of this, we'll get to that. Florida Panthers eliminated and won their first Stanley Cup by beating the Edmonton Oilers on Monday in Game 7. A near-historic collapse for Florida. A near-historic comeback by Edmonton. The only other time it happened in 1942, the Toronto Maple Leafs came back from a 3-0 series deficit to the Detroit Red Wings and won the Stanley Cup. Florida able to fight off a dark historic moment and capture their franchise's first Stanley Cup. A really good series between the two teams. Really, I'll be honest. I wanted Edmonton to win. This is not a situation of when of me really hating the opponent or the team that ended up winning. I'm fine with Florida winning, but man, when I look at the Stanley Cup in the Stanley Cup playoffs, if it's not my Capitals, if it's not my dad's Blues, I really want it to be a Canadian team. They haven't won it since 1994. I saw a stat earlier today that an American team has won the Grey Cup in the Canadian Football League more recently than a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup. The Baltimore Stallions defeated the Calgary Stampeders in the 83rd Grey Cup in 1995. And the Montreal Canadiens defeated the LA Kings in the 1993 Stanley Cup final. Crazy. So that's why I want Canadian teams to win. Florida absolutely deserving. They are definitely the best team in the NHL this year. Absolutely suffocating play and beat out all of the competition. Yeah, they earned every bit of that. The Conn Smythe went to Connor McDavid. First time in a couple of decades that a losing player won the Conn Smythe MVP of the playoffs. But Connor McDavid absolutely deserved it. I know a lot of people upset that Sergei Bobrovsky, the goalie for Florida, did not win it. I think if he doesn't have that collapse during those 3 games in the Stanley Cup Finals, that he probably wins it. But McDavid, from start to finish, carried that Oilers team on his back. So I'm fine with that. Moving to baseball a little bit. Philadelphia Phillies, they're almost making it look easy. Currently, I believe the best record in baseball. They are sitting at 53-27. The Yankees second best at 52-29. But yeah, this Phillies team is real good, and I think when you look at the last couple of years with some of the heartbreak that they've had, and some of the mental lapses during the season. Now again, it's June. A lot of things can change between now and October, so nobody's putting the cart before the horse. But the Philadelphia Phillies have just been consistently good, winning most of their series. They're doing everything you want them to do. Their rotation has been stronger than expected. Their bullpen is performing pretty good. They still have weak spots there. That's probably the weakest spot. And they've also done it without some of their best players who've been hurt. So they're making it look easy. But the Baltimore Orioles, my Orioles, not making it look easy as of late. They broke a 5-game losing streak tonight, but it has been kind of a bumpy road. And part of the reason it's a bumpy road is because they've lost 3 pitchers in the last 4 weeks to elbow surgery, which is kind of a problem. But Orioles fans are kind of going a little. They're kind of going a little crazy. They are overreacting. It is a problem that Orioles fans aren't used to having. They got pretty good the end of the season 2 years ago. They won over 100 games last year, but lost in the playoffs. And now I think everybody who's an Orioles fan is kind of getting this punchy moment of like, we need to do it now because we know how quickly the being good can go away, right? But what I'm trying to remind Orioles fans is they went 19 out of 26 straight seasons where they had losing seasons, including 14 straight losing seasons since 1997. And we're worried about a 5-game losing streak in June. It's okay to be concerned, but when people start calling for the manager's head, we're saying we can't beat good teams. They're ignoring the fact that just within the last month, the Orioles have had series wins or series sweeps over the Boston Red Sox, twice over the Tampa Bay Rays, the Atlanta Braves, Philadelphia Phillies, and New York Yankees. They're 5-7 against the Yankees, second best team in baseball. They took 2 out of 3 against the Phillies, the best team in baseball. All within the last month. And that's with losing 3 pitchers in their rotation. It's hard for me to get worried about that. It's hard for me to get worried about that because I do believe in this Orioles team. Now, the Orioles need to get and address their starting pitching woes before the trade deadline. Because this lineup is, and this team is good enough to win a World Series. I don't think they're good enough to win a World Series if they don't improve their starting pitching. Switching back to hockey, the Washington Capitals this week unveiled their 50th anniversary logo. It ties different aspects of their history, but really leans back on their original logo. They're using branding and things throughout the week with coloring of different eras of Capitals hockey: the lighter red, lighter blue, the blue and copper of the 90s, and now the more deeper red, dark blue, because it's 50 years, and it's been a great time at times. It's been a rough times at others being a Capitals fan, but obviously this today was the 20th anniversary of when the Capitals drafted Alexander Ovechkin, who changed the course of that franchise's history, led to their first Stanley Cup, first and only in 2018. And I'm excited and for what the 50th season could bring. The Capitals finished the regular season on a high note. The opening round of the playoffs was not great, but I think there's a lot of potential over the next couple of years with a young coach and a young roster, and 13 years ago when the Hershey Bears won Calder Cup number 11, that led to the eventual Capitals Stanley Cup in 2018, and I'm hoping that history kind of repeats itself a bit with back-to-back Calder Cup champions. I'll talk about that in a minute. But they have already made a trade. They got rid of Darcy Kemper, bringing in Pierre-Luc Dubois from the Los Angeles Kings, which he's been problematic with not lived up to his potential so far. A former 3rd overall pick, but it's a new locker room. It's a different locker room that I'm hoping will lead to him actually realizing some of that success that he was so touted for. But the word from Capitals general manager Brian McClellan is they're not done, and it's going to be an active summer for the Capitals. And I think it needs to be, because you have guys on this team: John Carlson, TJ Oshie if he returns, Alexander Ovechkin, and some other vets, Max Pacioretty if he returns, who are aging guys who are towards the end of their career that want one last run. But you also have young guys. You have fresh faces in DC. Dylan Strome, Sonny Milano, Hendrix LaPierre, Connor McMichael, Ethan Frank, Beck Malenstein. You're going to have Ivan Miroshnichenko coming up from Hershey this year. Some young defensemen that spent time there when other guys were hurt. You have a new goalie tandem, Charlie Lindgren and probably Hunter Shepard. You have a young head coach entering his second year in the NHL with Washington. So I think you have to be active, because the NHL is different now than it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. When you won your Stanley Cup, the game is very different. You can't be just the big team that can score a lot of goals. You have to be defensively sound. You have to be good in the crease. You have to be great in the defensive zone, but you have to be able to move with speed. And that's what I hope the Capitals are planning on doing. But yeah, I'm excited to see what the active summer, as Brian McClellan calls it, will lead to. And then lastly, and again, this is one of the reasons why I've had kind of a break from the podcasting, a lot of my podcasting realm. 2 nights ago, the Hershey Bears, 1 minute and 6 seconds into overtime, won their 13th Calder Cup. I was there in the building, as I have been for most of the playoff games this spring. I would have been watching from my TV had it happened away from the Giants Center, as I have done for most every game this springtime over the past 2 months. And somewhere along this 2-month period, it really clicked with me that the Hershey Bears are my number one favorite sports team. And as much as I love the Washington Capitals, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Dallas Cowboys at times, Baltimore Orioles, the Hershey Bears are number one. And as I was talking to my friend Ryan as we were coming home from the game on Monday, I think it's just because that town and the buildings that have been the Bears' home, the Hershey Park Arena and now the Giants Center, is where I learned to love the game of hockey, which is my favorite sport. And it is the place when I think of my team. If you say the word, who is your sports team? Who's your favorite team in all of sports? I think of the Hershey Bears. That's the first place that I go. It's a 40-minute drive. It's affordable at times. And it's where I truly fell in love with hockey and with sports. But it also goes deeper than that. It is something that is important to really the greater Susquehanna Valley community that I live in. People come from about 5 or 6 counties, maybe more even, to go to Bears games. And it is so important to my family, members of my family. And it is something that is special with me and my dad, me and my wife, me and my best friend, me and multiple of my best friends. And, I was, 20 rows off the ice when they won a cup at home in 2010 and again on Monday. I'll probably never be in the building when the Stanley Cup is won. I'll never be in the building if Notre Dame or the Dallas Cowboys ever win a championship. I'll never be in the stadium if the Orioles ever win a World Series in my life. But I can almost guarantee if the Hershey Bears are going to be winning a Calder Cup at the Giants Center, I'll be there. And this team, and I'll get more on myself, but this team, back-to-back in minor league sports at that level is kind of unheard of. And I know Hershey fans are already talking about a potential, can we make it a three-peat? Well, the AHL is almost 90 years old, and it's happened one time in the 60s when there was 8 teams in the league. So, I mean, I'm not making plans for next June. I'm not saying it can't happen. But I'm certainly not making plans for next June, because I'm also just wanting to enjoy this experience of this June a little bit longer and thinking about it a little bit longer. And still watching the highlights and the games I've watched. I've watched the Game 7 win over the Cleveland Monsters multiple times, and I'm well on my way with Game 6 against Coachella. And I know I'll be there for the banner raising in October, same as I was last October when banner number 13 was raised to the rafters. Excuse me, when number 12 was raised to the rafters. But, and I talked about this on Discussions with a Nobody, but I'm also going to talk about it here and why this team means so much to me, and why last year's Calder Cup meant so much to me. This year's Calder Cup means so much to me, and hopefully there will be more in the very near future. Because on Monday night, 1 minute and 6 seconds into overtime period number 1 of Game 6 of the 2024 Calder Cup Finals, I was not in my seat yet because the end of intermission, I was grabbing a quick drink. And in hockey, if you don't know, they don't allow you to come into the seating area until there's a stoppage of play. So the line to get in to the seats was down the corridor between the seating area and the concourse, almost to the point where I was standing on the concourse, could barely see the ice. And I'm like, man, if they score, I want to be able to see it. So I knew the section over from where I was sitting, about 20, 15 rows or so in front of my dad with my best friend Ryan. That the section over, there was a larger landing area, seating area, or standing area where I could see. So I made my way over there, and sure enough, 1 minute and 6 seconds into overtime period number 1, Riley Sutter gets the pass onto the stick of Matthew Strome. He puts it past the Coachella goaltender, and history was made. And when I saw the puck go in the net, I immediately sprinted. Yes, Big Jim, very large man at almost 39 years old, sprinted around the concourse to the next section over to where my dad, three rows from the top, and I put my arm around him and I hugged him and I said, "We did it." And he hugged me back, and in a chaotic environment of 11,014, I believe it was, me and my dad celebrated together. And then we celebrated with Ryan as well. But in that moment, I was so happy to be able to throw my arms around my dad and celebrate that moment. Because he said something to me last year while we were sitting in the Giant Center at 1 o'clock in the morning, because Game 7 of the 2023 Calder Cup Finals was being played in Coachella Valley in California, and it was a 10 p.m. Eastern time start because it was 7 p.m. out there. And going into the overtime period, my dad said something to me that he said again on Monday night, that that the time between 2010 and 2023, which was the gap between the Bears' most recent cups at that point, was 13 years. And he goes, I'm 67. He goes, I would be 80. He goes, I don't know if I'll get to 80. And then it really hit me that every season of Bears hockey, but particularly these ones where they win a championship last year and this year, the pinnacle of sports, the reason that we are sports fans. This could be the last one of those that I get to celebrate with my dad. And it like that reality has made these last two and the memories of them so special. And as tiring as it has been to feel like I've gone to Hershey every other day for the last month and a half, it's been worth it to have that moment where I could run and hug my dad and celebrate another Calder Cup with him. So that is another reason why when I say the Hershey Bears are my number one team, that's why. Because I don't... any other team doesn't mean as much to me and the people I love. So, I highly doubt anybody connected to the Hershey Bears, or Hershey Bears fans, will hear this. I hope somebody does. But thank you. Thank you for 2023. Thank you for this year, 2024. These last 2 years of Hershey Bears hockey have been a lifetime of memories that I will have forever. And certainly hope we do it again next spring. That'd be wonderful. But if we don't, I will always have these memories, and that means a lot. So I'm going to wrap it up with that, and thank you for listening. If you are not following along with the show, please do. Huddle Up Podcast, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. We are Huddle Up Podcast Inc. on Instagram. You can get me at Big Jim Sports, but just follow the show, subscribe to the show, all podcast platforms, YouTube as well. Hit our link tree in any of our social media. That'll get you where you need to go. We have our merchandise over at tpublic.com. And until next time, stay tuned. We're going to be back more and more frequently. So thank you again. And stay safe, stay smart, and as always, go for the win.